Outrage is a powerful thing, a useful thing, in fact. You're talking to someone who, to this day, won't shut the fuck up about aliens, colonial marines, who has a semi-regular post-credit section called Fuck Konami News. Oh, I know a little thing or two about backlash, about outrage, about righteous indignation, but lately I'm looking at some of this stuff and thinking, Jesus goddamn bloody asshole in Christ, what happened? It's like people have turned into the Crust or something. People getting outraged over the tiniest details, getting outraged at the wrong people, getting outraged over the idea of outrage. People who are pissed off because they think someone else is pissed off about something. Everybody cool your shit down. Let's get pissed when there's a cause, but right now it's rudderless and everything's silly. For some of you, again, like last week, I got to point out, it's for some of you. I know some of you have stopped watching already and have started writing your comments, just like last week. And just like last week, you won't listen to me saying this bit now. What am I even... The rest of you just watch. We'll let the others do their own thing. Final Fantasy XV was delayed by 2 months, the news breaking this past week. The highly anticipated game, once in assumed development as Final Fantasy XIII Versus, was pushed back by Square Enix for some extra polish and to allow all the features included in a significant day one patch to instead be shipped with the game proper. Not a bad reason for a delay, and with the game having been in development for quite literally 10,000 years, another 2 months is hardly a trial. I mean, unless you're a complete fucking idiot, that is. In circumstances shockingly similar to those surrounding No Man's Sky and the absolutely horrendous reaction to its own 2-month delay, Final Fantasy's fanbase has seen more than a handful of complete and total wingnuts flip every last crumb of their shit over the announcement. The problem began when news of the delay was broken by a small website by the name of Gamnesia, which I'm guessing is a play on the word amnesia for some reason, but Gamnesia sounds silly and Gamnesia undermines the attempted portmanteau, so really it just doesn't work. Anyway, the point isn't the site's fumbling name. The point is that reporter Ben Lamoureux cited a trusted GameStop source when telling the world that Final Fantasy XV would release on November 29th instead of the expected September 30th. And, just as what happened when Kotaku broke the story of No Man's Sky's delay, an army of so-called fans decided to bury Ben under an avalanche of personal attacks, insults, and accusations. Lamoureux was accused of tabloid sensationalism in comment sections and Reddit. He was labelled a liar, as Internet Sherlocks claimed they could totally disprove the delay rumours. These individuals, tossing out accusations and insults, showcased a downright skin-crawling level of desperation, a problem that only escalated as further proof and corroboration mounted up. Gamnesia posted photo evidence of GameStop's delay information, which was immediately labelled fake as fuck by the deniers. Kotaku's Jason Schreier, did I get it right this time, Jason? Backed Gamnesia up after doing some digging of his own, hearing from his own sources that yes, the delay was indeed real. Naturally, this only drove people even further up their own asses, as evidenced by these morons on famous moron magnet Game FAQs. Here's someone suggesting a website can be sued for slander for reporting on a delay. Here's another blaming the delay news on, I fucking shit you not, a feminazi SJW conspiracy to cause a riot. What? Fucking what? Use of the increasingly worthless term clickbait was in full swing, as were calls for reporters to be fired and websites spammed or shut down for daring to suggest Final Fantasy XV could ever be delayed. Looking back on these messages, knowing now that, just like No Man's Sky, Square Enix would later confirm the delay and undermine the nasty, smug, overwhelmingly pathetic denial, I can't help cringing to such a degree that I feel like 1,000 worms are wriggling under my fucking flesh. All this because people didn't want to acknowledge Occam's razor and believe that a video game would simply be delayed 2 months. They'd rather believe a giant conspiracy. And they got that upset over a fucking video game being fucking delayed 2 fucking months. Like, is this really the new way of things? I used to do the whole video game news beat. It had its trolls, and its abusers, and its bullshit, but I don't recall it ever being so bad as it seems to be lately, where people are so fucking quick to shoot the messenger because their frail little souls can't handle a game being out of their grasp for a few extra weeks. What happened to people? Like, what the fuck actually happened to people? Say what you will of the fanboys and zealots of yesteryear, but at least they tried to have a little goddamn dignity. This shit, Final Fantasy 15, No Man's Sky, whatever else has been causing all these horrendous little tantrums on your subreddits and your Game FAQs message boards lately. I mean, this is a new wave of piteous behaviour. Let me spell it out for you. Unlike the majority of you who safely hide behind anonymous accounts, the people reporting on this shit have actual professional and personal stakes in the things they're publishing. The idea that it's worth it for Kotaku, or even a smaller site like Gamnesia, to simply make up a story about a mere 2-month delay for a day's traffic gain exists only in your berserk goddamn minds. A day or two's traffic spike is not worth the immediate annihilation of the reporter's credibility when Square Enix could so easily come out and refute it. And 2 months? Really? Your imaginations are so fucking restricted that you really think the best lie a reporter could come up with is a cosmically insignificant 2-month delay? No, mistakes are made in games press, a massive fuck-ton of them, but the fantasy that reporters like Jason Schreier are just inventing shit to piss you off is just that, a rather narcissistic fantasy, and far from a final one, sadly, given that history repeated itself so quickly after the last time a subset of fans embarrassed themselves so completely. Here's another thing worth considering. Do you really have such a self-important view of yourself that you think it's worth a reporter's time and energy and mental well-being to piss you off? That's another myth that needs to be dispelled. If you're the kind of malingering troglodyte who believes delay reports, social issue discussion, or review scores are made up specifically to infuriate you, then guess what? The reality is that most of us actually want nothing to do with you. Do you think it's pleasant for a game blog to put up with the kind of literary vandalism your ilk scroll all over their comment sections? Do you think people with careers and better things to do actually want any interaction or attention from you? No, they'd rather you fuck off. As someone who's regularly accused of writing clickbait, let me assure you in the strongest possible terms, if you're one of those accusatory wankers, I do not want your clicks. I don't want your angry comments, I don't want your views, I don't want you near me. Stick to Game FAQs, or the Echo Chamber subreddits, or whatever weird little community where you belong, penned in like shrieking animals, and let the rest of us go about our goddamn lives in peace. And this is before we get to the sheer sorry awfulness that is getting this worked up, this upset, this goddamn riotous over a goddamn video goddamn delay. See, this is the kind of fucking performance that associates the term gamer with negativity and makes the word entitled a justifiably usable one. It's this shit right here, this shit that needs to stop. And again, I need to stress to high heaven that this whole thing addresses a certain set of you, not all of you. Okay, so calm down. Hopefully most of you watching this have judicious heads on your shoulders and don't act this way, but goddamn the ones who are reduced to gibbering wrecks when a video game is delayed. Especially when it's delayed for a good goddamn reason, as Final Fantasy 15 seems to be. Held back a few weeks to avoid a huge day one patch and make the game a more polished experience? That's a good bloody thing, you inadequate braying dolts. It gives me no pleasure to spend 2 episodes in a row looking at the mortifying underbelly of video game fan bases, but it seems to be with increased urgency that these eggshell princes, these real-life Veruca salts, need to be told that their behaviour is not okay, that their acutely vicious reactions to news that matters only in the most relative of senses is not the behaviour of the reasonable, and it's sure as shit become apparent by now that the companies putting the games out there have no intention of stepping up and saying it themselves. Of course, why would they? We already touched on it last episode when we talked about No Man's Sky, but this is exactly the kind of volatile environment the AAA game industry wants. It only works to their favour that a hardcore foundation of vacuous thralls are chomping at the bit to consume and defend and fight over their products like caricature drug addicts. It all comes back to, again, the ravening beast that is hype culture, a beast that seems, from my observations over the past few years, to have only gotten bigger and more terrible, despite customers getting burned by misleading PR and overhyped products time and time again. Did you learn nothing from Titanfall, from Watch Dogs, from all the other games that you were whipped up into a piranha-like frenzy over, only to finally get them in your hands and realise that, at best, you had yet another video game, not the second coming of Jesus arsholing Christ? And it shows no signs of abating. Just the other day, I caught Titanfall's official Twitter account demanding its followers to get hype, seemingly encouraging the exact same level of hyperbolic bullshit that undermined the release and reputation of the original game. The clueless and short-sighted reaction to Final Fantasy XV's delay news is proof enough that a vocal and damaging portion of us are unwilling or unable to learn from history, even incredibly recent history. I've spent years now with this show, doing what I can to pull back the game industry's impressive curtain to show this skeletal, decaying, squealing little man behind it, and sometimes I wonder if it's all worth it, when people are still so hopelessly addicted to the AAA marketing machine that they'll swallow every little promise, get upset over the tiniest little change of plan, get disappointed by the reality versus their expectations, and promptly forget what they just went through the moment another big name is revealed and the cycle begins anew. I suppose it means I'm not out of a job, but good fucking lord is it depressing to see people sell out their dignity to be slavish puppets for an industry that ultimately doesn't give a single solitary fuck about them outside of how long they can milk their wallets for. Look, just delays happen, okay? That's what happens to games. To all of them. They get delayed for thousands of different reasons, and if you can't handle that by now, you're going to be so utterly, truly fucked when you start interacting with the real world and find that life's actually tough, and a game delay isn't even a blip on the radar in comparison. You're right about the SJWs wanting to destroy your happiness, though. I'm personally working on getting For Honor delayed by 2 months as we speak. The difference between righteous indignation and just plain indignation can be a subjective thing. I'm sure some of you watching are thinking, well, Jim's just saying what he's upset about is legit, and what we're upset about isn't. And you could fairly make that argument. You know, I'm cogent of that as a particular backlash that could be had against this video. But I tend to think, look at the target. Look at what you're going after. Are you going after someone who's just reporting a fact? Who's just saying something? You know, they're not attacking your ideals, they're not attacking you, they're not even attacking the game, although I think outrage over a difference of opinion of a game's quality can be fucking stupid as well. But just reporting a thing that happened, that happened to me this past weekend. I tweeted a picture from Deus Ex Mankind Divided, which, by the way, is fucking amazing, and mentioned how a character in it said the term social justice warriors in a debate about rights of augmented people. And I thought that was just a funny thing to point out. But according to some people on the internet, I was outraged and offended, and so they decided to attack me with a volley of abuse, because they were offended at the idea that I might be offended. It's shit like that when you're just like, you're that ready to shoot the messenger and not attack anything else. Just, I heard it from this person, therefore that person needs to have their head cut off. That, I think, is where we go from the subjective to the fact that you're just objectively a fucking idiot. So maybe chill out, have a cup of tea, have a wank, simmer down, and thank God for me. Won't shut up about aliens, colonial marines, who has a regular, well, semi-regular feature called Fuck Co... I was always going to say Fuck Kotag. Which I'm sure some of you would have no problem with, but... Oh, no offence, Mr. Totillo and friends, I've got every respect. But that did seem like a Freudian slip. Okay.
The lever!
Hark the herald angels sing, Konami can't do a fucking thing. Hello and welcome to Fuck Konami News. That's all the news that's fit to make you say fuck Konami. Yes, we just did an episode about Outrage, and here we are with some Jimquisition branded Outrage trademark. That's fine. It's not hypocritical. In fact, I'm quite jovial. I'm quite happy because we have a new Metal Gear game. Oh yes! Hideo Kojima may be out the building, but Konami is committed to keeping Metal Gear going strong. And here's the trailer for Metal Gear Survive. Oh my god, that's perfect! No, hear me out. That, for Konami, is actually perfect. Yes, Metal Gear Survive, the first game since Hideo Kojima left, the first Metal Gear game that Konami must put out to prove that they don't need him, to prove that Metal Gear Solid will still retain everything that makes Metal Gear Solid what it is. The first game they can come up with is a multiplayer cooperative survival game with zombies. A cooperative survival game with zombies. The most this generation's Graham Brown military shooter. That's what they came up with. The most generic, bog standard, factory setting, commoner garden game idea that anyone could ever come up with. The most basic, the most cookie cutter concept in the world. A co-op survival zombie game. That is just perfect Konami. They have to prove that Metal Gear Solid still has legs. They have to prove that they've still got what it takes to retain people's interest in the series. And they go as plain as fucking possible. With zombies that have big metal spikes coming out of their heads like zombie unicorns. Zombie corns. It's amazing. Thanks to this announcement, the sky's the limit in terms of what Konami could do next to completely miss the point of things. I can't wait, personally, for Farmville-vania. I'm sure that'll be their next project. Konami, keep being Konami. Please, because Konami is Konami. Konami is the worst. And fuck Konami. The company that will never, ever stop giving me quality material. Metal Gear Survive. With zombie unicorns. We laugh because it's better than crying.